Father Stranon, your sacred tokens shall remain secure from the grasp of the idol.
So the Dread Incarnon is here, and well, it looks very familiar, doesn't it, folks? Of course, I shouldn't really be surprised. Apparently the Soma and the Boltor Incarnons are also equally as similar. So practically speaking, yeah, this feels about the same, but it is the Dread and it does have some different stats, so let's get into it. We're here in the Simulacrum with Mag. Alright, so, of course, being very similar to the Paris Incarnon, you can do some relatively similar things. So, land your headshots, get your Incarnon mode out, it's a wave of death. Like so. An AoE wave of death. In a similar fashion, you can meat grind that wave of death, and that is going to massively increase your damage. Speaking of meat grinding, you can do the thing that I've been doing quite a while now in mobile defense missions. Because in mobile defense missions, you can use one of them to set up the magnetized bubble, pull enemies in while it is still spinning through the magnetized bubble, like so. It continues. Now, let's have a quick look at the build that I'm using on the Dread Incarnon, because it is a little bit different to my Paris build. This is the build that I'm using on my Dread Incarnon. So the big difference is going to be a direct result of my Riven, the Dread Hexacritador. It does come with cold damage, and that is why we're not using Prime Cryo rounds, instead we're using Bladed rounds, okay? We have some additional status chance, we have some additional crit chance, and we also have an additional amount of weapon recoil, which is technically the negative, although honestly, I don't think I noticed that all that much. Outside of that though, the rest of this build should be pretty straightforward. Prime Shred, crit mods, Galv Scope, Galv Chamber. Galvanized Aptitude is not supposed to work with AoE shenanigans like the Wave of Death, which is why I'm not using it on both the Paris Prime or the Dread for their Incarnon modes. Otherwise, we're going for viral damage with Infected Clip and of course the Riven's cold damage. And we are going for Bladed rounds. Bladed rounds, of course, being quite important because we do get additional crit damage when we're aiming when we kill something. And typically, you're going to be killing things pretty quickly. Now, this is actually even more important because one of the perks that the Dread Incarnon has will actually factor in quite a lot for something like Bladed rounds. We're here with Cavallero. Okay, so let's have a look at the Incarnon Tree for the Dread. We'll start off with evolution number 1. Woohoo, we get Incarnon. Awesome. Evolution number 2. So we have two options here. One's called Hitman's Opportunity, increases damage by 70, increased damage by 100% if enemy has less than half health. 99% of the time, you're not going to be getting that particular part of the perk because you're going to be one-shotting enemies, at least with the build that I run anyway. But there are oftentimes going to be some enemies like, let's say, Examai, who are just tanky enough that you might want to actually use Hitman's Opportunity. So there's that. The alternative is Coup de Grace. Increase damage by 50, but on hit, increase damage by 10, plus 10% fire rate, stacks up to 5 times. Reset on a missed shot. Apparently, from what I've heard, this missed shot reset doesn't occur if you're in Incarnon mode, number 1. And then number 2, you need to have also the hate and despair on your loadout for Coup de Grace to work. I, personally, don't really use the hate, and I am yet to get the despair Incarnon, so I'm not going to use despair all that much either. So I will not be using Coup de Grace at the present moment. But if you have these 3 weapons in your loadout, you should be able to use Coup de Grace, and it should be relatively easy to use this particular perk. Evolution number 3. We have Hitman's Horde. Increased ammo capacity by 144. Honestly, I don't think this is going to make a huge difference in the long run. I have never run out of arrows So even if it's increasing the ammo capacity by 144, or quite more correctly, 244, doesn't really matter. Marksman's Focus, negative 30% zoom. A lot of people don't seem to like zoom. You can choose this if you want. Me personally, I have gone for Swift Deliverance. That extra projectile speed, it's the most useful out of all of these perks, honestly. The extra projectile speed is going to obviously make it a little bit easier to aim a bow. Me personally though, this is not going to make a difference at all because I'm too skilled at using bows. Moving on, we finally also have evolution number 4. We have Survivor's Edge. Increase critical chance by 10%. Increase status chance by 10%. The reason why I've decided not to go for this particular one is because, number one, there's already a lot of critical chance that you're going to be getting, at least with a lot of the mods that you have, namely Point Strike, Galv Scope, hell, even my Riven. And then number 2, I'm also getting quite a lot of status chance from my Riven as well. I don't think I'm going to need that. You can pick this if you want though. Elemental Balance, increase status chance by 24%. This might actually be a lot stronger than I thought, in much the same way that Elemental Balance on the Paris Incarnon is kinda busted. I may want to go ahead and explore that later on, but for the time being, I have chosen not to use that. Instead, I have chosen to go for Zeroed In, increase critical damage by 1 times. Now, keep in mind, this is a base increase on the crit multiplier. In normal mode, you go from 2 times to 3 times, which is a 50% increase. In Incarnon form, you should be going from, yes, 3 times to 4 times, which is a 33% increase in your crit damage. And that is where bladed rounds will kick in, because it is a base crit multiplier increase. So when bladed rounds is also increasing your crit damage, you are getting increased value from that. That is why I have chosen to go for bladed rounds on my build. Now, obviously, you can use hunted munitions if you want. I don't because it's too boring. Anyway, that's kind of it with the Dread Incarnon. Now, I will be doing a Battle of the Bows. So stay tuned for that, where I will be comparing the DPS, I guess, of the Paris Incarnon, the Dread Incarnon, Cernos Prime. I think I might as well chuck in Daikyu and Natarok. Going to have a look at what these weapons can do when compared to each other. Some people reckon that the Daikyu is still the king of the single target bows. I'm not so sure. I think my Paris Prime should be able to beat everything, but we'll see. Especially with my particular Paris Prime Riven, but obviously we will do non-Riven comparisons and all that jazz. But even then, I personally think that the Dread Incarnon is good. It's very, very good. If you are a fan of the Dread, you should be a very, very happy player. You should be a very happy camper indeed, because the Dread Incarnon is, by all accounts, very, very good. It is, however, seemingly getting outperformed by my Paris Incarnon. Now, granted, it could be that Elemental Balance perk that is doing a lot of the heavy lifting, because that Elemental Balance perk is actually kind of busted, at least on the Paris. It could be busted as well on the Dread, but I haven't really gone around to having a look at it. So maybe they are about equal. Generally speaking, I would say they're about equal, but in my experience, my Paris Incarnate is doing a bit better, especially with Mag, especially with the few things that Mag can do that Paris can take advantage of, whereas the Dread, you basically need to play full Stalker mode, I guess, if you want to make full advantage of the Dread perks, specifically Coup de Grace. So there's a lot of stuff to keep in mind. But overall, I'd say the Dread Incarnate is very good. Let me know what all of this in the comments below. How do you feel about the Dread Incarnate? Let me know in the comments, were you expecting it to be beyond God tier? I did a poll actually, and a lot of people expected it to be better than Paris Incarnate God tier. I don't think it's better than Paris Incarnate God tier, but of course I do have a massive, overwhelming bias to the Paris Prime, for obvious reasons. But still, it seems to be very, very good. But aside from that, hope you guys enjoyed. If you like this video, hit that like button, subscribe for more Warframe content, and until next time, I'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching. Bye.